Hey guys, welcome. Today we are going to be talking about westward expansion. Westward meaning traveling west. So at the top of your paper, I would like for you to write westward expansion. I'm using today my pencil and red pen and highlighters today. Okay, and we're going to talk about westward expansion. Sorry, it helps if you can see that. You are going to need crayons today if you have some handy, or colored pencils. Crayons or colored pencils would be awesome. You want to go ahead and have those ready. You're going to need your social studies workbook for a couple of things. And you're going to need these slides printed from our Padlet. You may have them on one page. Okay. So underneath westward expansion, I'm going to cut out this big slide and glue it in because that's where we're going to start. I hope that you remember that Thomas Jefferson added on the Louisiana Purchase. So our country started out going to the Mississippi. We got that during the Treaty of Paris. And then Thomas Jefferson bought the Louisiana Territory from France. Got a good deal. And that's as far as the country has expanded to, is to that Louisiana Purchase territory where Lewis and Clark went with their dog and explored around. But under the presidency of James K. Polk, Tennessee boy, we're going to see our country expand all the way to the Pacific Ocean, all the way to the West Coast, which is what our country looks like now. So thank you, Mr. James K. Polk. So I am going to glue this one in first. I hope you watched the video on westward expansion before joining us here. Okay, so we have the Louisiana Purchase, but Americans wanted more. So Tennessee President James K. Polk, I'm going to highlight him, believed in manifest destiny. I'm going to highlight that quiz question. Meaning it was our destiny to expand America all the way out west, all the way to the West Coast. California, here we come, westward ho. So manifest destiny, meaning that it was our destiny to expand America all the way to the West. And I hope you saw this photograph in color on the video. They called this lady a goddess who was bringing the settlers out and having them move out west. It was their destiny. They were supposed to go and do that. Okay. So we need to know James K. Polk is a Tennessee boy. I'm going to make a little note beside him. He is the 11th president. 11th, it's kind of tiny. What president is he? The 11th. And he became president in 1844. Write it down. I know it's tiny. I'm going to highlight it because that might be a part of the quiz question. So we learned about the Louisiana Purchase, and we learned about while the Louisiana Purchase happened, over in the colonies, things are getting kind of packed. Big cities are growing, factories are growing. We learned about the Industrial Revolution. And so folks are interested in going out west. They want more land. They want to go out there and be able to spread their wings and get land and not be in the big factory systems in the cities. Some folks want to go out there for adventure, and some of folks just want a better way of life for their families. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is cut out this map and get my crayons or colored pencils ready. I am going to put this on a new page all the way up at the top because I'm going to make notes below it. Okay, so once you've got this one in, flip to a new page. And we're going to put this one up at the top. Because our whole goal today is to understand that people went west and that we had to get that land. It was not a part of the United States up until this point in our story, our history. So go ahead and glue this in. And I am going to start with a blue crown to represent the patriots from the Revolutionary War. Okay. So just a little crash course back into what we've talked about this year. Here is the Mississippi River right up through here. And so everything over here, I'm just going to shade blue because this is the land and the territories that we got when we won the Revolutionary War as patriots, Continental Army. I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die. So when George Washington took over, that was the land that we had. Okay. I'm going to get a green crown because we paid money for the Louisiana Purchase. So we had George Washington, John Adams, and then we have our third president, Thomas Jefferson. He added all of this land to the United States. Oh, hello, to the United States. Now I'm trying to not color too hard over the words. I want to be able to say the words on the map. I'm just trying to color coordinate it for you. So these are parts that we've already learned about. We talked about Lewis and Clark going out and exploring, and people were interested. You know, we started out as just the 13 colonies, then we gained all this territory, and then we went and explored out in Louisiana, had some conflict with the Native Americans. That kind of led to the War of 1812 that you learned about. Okay, so people had to find safe ways to get out there. Okay, so I'm going to add right here something that we're going to talk about, and we'll cut out a map for. I'm just going to add it here. The first barrier blockade problem that we had from the 13 colonies is right up through here. You can kind of see the map looks bumpy because that's a mountain range. The Appalachian Mountains. Well, folks had to find a way to get through the Appalachian Mountains, okay? And they did. They found a route from North Carolina that crossed through the Appalachian Mountains, dipped into Tennessee, and then went back up into Kentucky, okay? And they called it the Wilderness Road. And we're going to take a note on the Wilderness Road later, so just stick that in your pocket. But right now I'm going to try and get my red pen, if it will, to be over here in North Carolina, kind of come through those Appalachian Mountains into Tennessee, and then up into Kentucky a little bit. Okay. Hopefully yours will look even better than mine. Well, I can try a different pen. That one is not agreeing with me. This one. Oh, that's so much better. Okay, so my red pen there. So that was one of the first routes that people used to get from the colonies into the new territory we got during the Revolutionary War. Okay, so down here, I'm going to add a little line, a little red line, and I'm going to write Wilderness Road, and we'll take a little note on it later on. Okay, so stick that one in your back pocket. And then Thomas Jefferson got this green part with the Louisiana Purchase. The next is during James K. Polk's reign as Presidente, and he annexes Texas. Annex means to bring it in and make it a state. I'm going to grab my orange, and I'm going to color. It kind of goes up in here. I'm going to color this area orange. Now, Texas had wanted to be a state for a while. They wanted to join this United States of America. Texas was actually its own country at the time. Isn't that crazy? It's one of the only territories that was actually its own independent country. But Mexico thought they owned this land. And Texas says, no, we own this land. And they've been bickering and fighting this whole time. And the United States is kind of like, I don't know if I want to get involved in that. I don't know if I want to be a part of your war. That sounds bad. I don't want to be a part of that. Okay. But eventually James K. Polk convinces the United States to let Texas join in. So we gain all of this territory. The fear was that Mexico, we were going to go to war with them, and that would be by it. Okay. So keep that little fact. Might go to war with Mexico, stick it in your back pocket. We're going to pull it out again in a minute. Down here, I'm going to draw a little orange box. I'm kind of creating a map key with some facts. And I'm going to write in 1845, Texas is annexed. Now I'm going to put parentheses there. I'm going to put becomes a state because that's what annexed means. I'm going to highlight annex. That's the vocabulary word. Maybe you need to know it. So James K. Polk becomes a president in 1844. And in 1845, he's already got Texas. He's got all this land added. And remember, his goal was to add it all. Okay. The next big chunk of land that he gets for us is the Oregon Territory, going up north here. So I'm going to pull a like light purpley crown. I don't know why purple makes me think of snow and coldness. Okay. Now, for a long time, this land right here, this Oregon country, this Oregon Territory, has been owned by Great Britain and America. They both wanted to live there. They both wanted to hunt there. They both wanted the riches there. And so they kind of called a truce and said, can we share? And they're like, cool, awesome, we'll share. Well, eventually that's not good enough. So Britain, Great Britain, England, and the United States kind of, negotiate back and forth. And it used to go, the whole territory used to go all the way up into Canada. And so James K. Polk gets them to agree that they can have everything above the 49th parallel. I'm going to take my highlighter. This line right here that you see of the United States, that's the 49th parallel. And so we get the Oregon Territory below it, and Britain gets the territory above it, part of Canada now. All right, so I'm going to take my purple and I'm going to color. Be careful, it stops at this line and jumps down here a bit. Okay. So we get this from Great Britain, and later lots of folks will want to go to that area for all of the cool things that are there. Good hunting, good trees, good fishing. Okay, a lot of folks are going to travel out west to the Oregon Territory and take the Oregon Trail, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. All right, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to add a purple little square. Okay. And I'm going to say in 1846, man, James K. Polk was not wasting any time. Became president, got Texas, got Oregon Territory. Hot dog. 1846, U.S. gains Oregon Territory from, I'm going to abbreviate, Great Britain. Now, I told you to save Mexico in your back pocket, so pull it back out. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Mexico did not declare war on Texas, which was a fear that we had, but they still causing all kinds of problems with the Texas territory. There's all kinds of disputes, border disputes, and things going on. So James K. Polk says at 1846, I'm done with this, declare war. And so we have what's called the Mexican-American War. It goes on for 2 years of bickering and fighting. Eventually, we kind of get the upper hand, and James K. Polk says, hey, let's stop this fighting. I tell you what, I give you money, and I want to buy this part of the United States from you, clean up this line here, and then you go about your business, we go about our business. And so it worked out. They agreed to it. And it's called the Mexican Cession. Like, we're going to cease fire. You're going to pay us and you get all this territory, which later becomes the states of California, Arizona, New Mexico, Wyoming, all of Nevada, all those cool states. So I'm going to put my red crown in my hands because we won that through battling. And I'm going to color in this part of my map red. And I'm going to do a little red dot down here. Well, it looks pinkish on the screen. Sorry, guys. And I'm going to write, okay, and from 1846, no, he's knocking it out, to 1848, we have the Mexican War, or the Mexican-American War. And in 1848, when the war ends, we get the Mexican Cession. For $15 million. So we gained all of that red territory there for $15 million. So if you think about it, I think this one was 15 million, this one 15 million. $30 million sounds like a lot of money, but not by today's standards. That's a lot of land. So now we have what should look like what we're used to seeing for the United States. Thank you, James K. Polk. You did what you said you were going to do. You said, I'm taking us out west. It is our manifest destiny. We are going and we're going to have those riches. And he got us Texas, followed by Oregon, and then got this land and the Mexican Cession after the Mexican-American War. So we have all this land. So people decide, hey, guess what? Let's go explore. Let's take our families away from the factories. Let's go get some new land. Let's make new businesses. Let's go start our own lives out west. So we need ways to get there. It is very, very difficult to carry everything that we own across thousands and thousands of miles. There were no cars. There were no railroads out all the way west at this point in time. There are no airplanes. So people were going on foot, by horse, and by something called a Conestoga wagon. Okay, it's one of those big covered wagons. So let's look at some of the routes that became the best routes to get out there. We already talked about the Wilderness Road. So now I'm going to take a little note on the Wilderness Road, because first from here, you got to cross the Appalachian Mountains. So I'm going to my next clean page and I'm going to put Wilderness Road. And something that you may have heard before, the Cumberland Gap. Okay. I want you to carefully now tear out page 107 from your social studies book or your social studies workbook, okay? So carefully tear that out. And then I am like super duper careful, gonna cut exactly on the black line here because I want this map and this one for the next part of our notes, okay, guys? So real careful, cut out this beige map. This is a primary source. This is what it would look like, okay? Using precision. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, don't throw that, don't throw the scrap away because we're going to use the map on the back. Right? Now I'm going to glue it in here. So I've got some space to take notes here. The easiest way for folks to travel at this time was by water. But you and I should know, since Lewis and Clark told us when they explored, that there is not a waterway all the way to the west. So they're going to have to travel over land. They're going to have to travel over mountains. And mountains just are not easy to climb, okay, especially with a big old wagon, okay? So they had to find ways through these barriers. They had to find what we call gateways to the west. Open that gate, let us through these barriers. And here in Tennessee, coming from North Carolina into Tennessee, there we are, taking this back home. We have something called the Cumberland Gap. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to draw a mountain. That is an Appalachian mountain. I'm going to leave a little space and come up and draw another mountain. And then right here, I'm going to put another little mountain. Those are mountains, don't make fun. And then I'm going to come through here and I'm going to draw me a little road. Okay. Like it's. Now they did not have paved roads. They didn't even have gravel to put down on them usually, okay? So this is a gap between the mountains. Daniel Boone and his friends are some of the first guys that went through here and chalked down, took their tools and made it easier for wagons and horses to come through, but it still was nothing like our beautiful streets that we have today. Okay, but this gap, space between two mountains here in Tennessee, the famous one we're talking about is the Cumberland Gap. So between the mountains, it's a pathway between, okay? It was a safe route through the Cumberland Mountains, which are a part of the Appalachian Mountains, okay? Safe route through Appalachian, I'll abbreviate mountains. So on our map, you can see the words Cumberland Gap here. Okay. And the Cumberland Gap would have been where they could pass through the mountains safely. And then you'll see a dotted line here. Here's Boonesboro, not Murfreesboro, but Boonesboro. Daniel Boone, Daniel Boone, named after him. Maybe you've heard of Daniel Boone. And I'm going to take and highlight the little dotted line through here. So it would start in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, traveled the wilderness road leading to the wilderness, because at this time, when we have the colonies settling and we start to discover a way through the Appalachian Mountains, Tennessee and Kentucky are still wilderness. Bears and raccoons. Okay. So the wilderness road was used and improved by Daniel Boone, and other settlers used it as well. Okay. Should probably capitalize that. So recapping, James K. Polk promised us to move out west. He added Texas, the Oregon Territory, and lots of other land through the Mexican Cession. One route that settlers had to take to just get over into the west would be the Wilderness Road through the Cumberland Gap. I want you to now flip that social studies workbook page over, okay? And it should have just taken out a little notch here. We are going to cut out this map of the Oregon Trail. That is a game that Moby was playing in the video there. Oregon Trail, it's a game. I'll put that game on this Padlet for you as well if you have time to play it, because there were lots of ways for people to die. It was 1,900 miles along the Oregon Trail. It took 5 months to go on the trail and make it from Missouri into the Oregon Territory. All right, moving it up a bit. So I've got that glued in. So folks are like, yeah, but they had wagons and stuff, right? Well, yes, but the wagons were for carrying everything. You maybe have seen pictures. There's one on page 109 of your social studies book, if you want to look at that with me. Let's see if I can pull it out for you. 109. See these big covered wagons? So anything that you were going to take with you on this 5-month trip had to fit in this wagon. And you didn't want it to be so heavy that the horses or oxen could not carry it. And most of the time, the family did not ride in the wagon. They walked alongside it. They walked those 1,900 miles. And, you know, there's just all kinds of hardships. Barriers, mountains, deserts, wild animals, maybe some not friendly natives along the way. So they wanted to try and find the safest route possible. And so the Oregon Trail was one of the safest routes that you could take, because they had found the gaps that you could get through, the gateways that would take you there. And it started in Independence, Missouri, and it took you all the way into the Oregon Territory. So there were tons of people as they started the migration, the Manifest Destiny West, that took this Oregon Trail. And I'm going to add it to my previous map. Okay. So today we have talked about gaining land and people wanting to go out there so that they could have better lives, so that maybe they could get rich. We're going to talk about the gold rush next time we meet. So here I am. Here's Tennessee. Okay. I'm going to come into Missouri. Okay. My little dot here. And it's going to end in the Oregon Territory. So I'm going to put a little dot over here. Now, I do not expect you to draw it perfect, but it's kind of like a squiggle line up to there. Okay. So it would have taken them across. Well, that pen's not working too well for me. Let me see if my pencil works better. So it would have taken them across the country 1,900 miles with just what they could carry on their horses, on their backs, and in their wagon. So think about, what would have been the motivation to do that? Wanting a better life for their family. What sort of things would you be able to take with you at that time? And what kind of hardships would these people have faced? Whenever I think about our story and our history, I'm always amazed by our ancestors, the people who lived through this and were brave enough to go out into that wilderness and that wild and create America. Because now California is a great place to visit. Beautiful weather, great vacation spot. But at the time, man, this was not, there was no Walmart or roads out that way. So these people were made of some pretty tough stuff. We'll learn more about their motivation with the California Gold Rush when next we meet. Bye, guys.